Hi, my name is Maaike van Swieten, and I'm a data curation scientist in the EBRAINS curation team. In this video, I will show you how you can find a particular neuroscience dataset in the EBRAINS knowledge graph. The EBRAINS research infrastructure is a platform that addresses the needs and concerns of both neuroscience data providers and data users. Data providers need a data repository for long-term storage of their data. They need a persistent identifier, such as a DOI, to make the data findable and citable. And they also need to provide metadata that makes the data accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Data users, on the other hand, need the possibility to find, access, and process shared data, to validate and complement existing data, and to avoid the duplication of research. EBRAINS provides a platform for neuroscience data, models, and software. We implement metadata standards to make the data findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, and machine readable, to reduce the misunderstanding of data specifications. We also provide an atlas integration to spatially anchor datasets to specific brain regions. Datasets in the EBRAINS knowledge graph cover a wide variety of neuroscience data ranging from cellular levels to large-scale networks. They include many brain areas, species, and are linked to a number of research techniques. Before I show you the knowledge graph, I want to highlight that we have 4 different dataset types in the knowledge graph. We have datasets that are freely accessible. All the data and metadata are available to the data user and can be used under the license agreement of the dataset. We have datasets that are currently under embargo because we provide data providers with the opportunity to share their data before their work is published in a peer-reviewed journal. For these datasets, the data and sometimes the metadata are not accessible for a limited period of time. We also have restricted datasets. These datasets contain data that require additional security, such as pseudonymized human data. A data user can access these data if they consent to the access policies and data use agreement. And lastly, we have datasets that require authorization to access the dataset. This means that the data user needs to have an EBRAINS account. Okay, let's have a look at the knowledge graph right now. To access the EBRAINS platform, we have to go to ebrains.eu. On the website, we go to Explore our services, and we choose the service category Data and Knowledge. And we choose Services again. And to find data, we choose Find Data, Models, and Software. In the user interface, we can either find data using the free text search, or we can refine our search using the faceted search function. So let's try that for now. So we're interested in finding a data set, and we can refine which species we want the data set to be from. So let's try a mouse data set. We also want to have a data set that is freely accessible, and we can choose a modality of the data set. So let's try electrophysiology. And let's use this data set as an example. On the dataset card, we can find a DOI. There's a persistent identifier for the dataset that can be used to cite your data. And there's a license. And also, if there is a project that this dataset belongs to, we can find it here. And I will come back to that in a minute. So each dataset has a custodian who is the owner of the dataset. There's also a short summary of the data and the modalities that are linked to the dataset. So in our case, we search for electrophysiology, so that's in this list. And the dataset is linked to a brain atlas, in this case, the Ellen Mouse Brain Atlas. And it might be anchored to a brain region, and we find that here. This dataset can also be found in the Interactive Brain Atlas viewer, and I will come back to that in a minute as well. This preparation was in vivo, and it used the following methods, and is associated with some keywords. All these words can be used to find a dataset in the free text search. There's two ways to download the dataset. The first way is to download the dataset via this download dataset button. And by pressing on this download all related data as a zip folder, you will download everything in one go, and it will be downloaded as a zip file. The other option is to scroll down to the file list and pick a file or a folder and press the download folder button. Or you can go into it and actually just find one of the files that you're interested in and download it that way. So these files are associated with particular subjects, and these subjects can be found in the subject list. A subject would have a name, a species, sex, age category, in some cases also a weight class, a strain, and genotype, and sometimes there's also samples available. This dataset can be cited with the following citations that can be found under the Cite Dataset button, and this citation can be copied using the copy icon. More information about this dataset is described in the data descriptor, and this is a detailed metadata form for this particular dataset. A data descriptor has a title, it has an author list, the affiliation, the abstract, and a background and summary section for more detailed information. The methods are described in much more detail. There's also a technical validation section and some usage notes. And we also have a data records list. So this is how the data is organized in the downloaded folder. So there's two folders, for example, in this case, and some subfolders with the date and some description on the cell type or cell number, and a short description of what is in the file. If the code is available elsewhere, or there's scripts that can be run with this dataset, you can find it under code availability, and some last acknowledgements and author contributions and a reference list will be mentioned in this data descriptor as well. So let's go back to the project. So if a dataset is part of a project, is listed over here. So in this case, there's a project associated with this dataset. This project has a common theme or method and consists of one or more datasets. So in this case, there's two datasets available, one with multi-channel recordings and one with single cell recordings. There's also associated publication available, and that will be listed under the related publication section. This dataset is linked to the Interactive Brain Atlas, to the CA1 region of the hippocampus. So we can press on that link and we will be referred to the Interactive Brain Atlas. So in the Interactive Brain Atlas, we have 4 different panels, one with a coronal section, a sagittal section, a transverse section, or the whole brain. And the CA1 region is highlighted in all of these. We can find out more about this region by exploring this region in this panel. So there are some regional features, and these refer to the associated data sets that can be found for this particular region. And these are all available in the EBRAINS knowledge graph. So let's look at one of these data sets. So this data set has a description, summary of the data, and the reference, and you can also press this button to explore this data set in the knowledge graph. There are some additional associated brain regions that can be found under this heading. Let's also have a look at a data set with restricted access. On the dataset card of a restricted dataset, we also find the same components as on a free access dataset, but the license is slightly different because the data user needs to accept the data use agreement before they can access the dataset. To get access to the dataset, press the Access Dataset button. For this dataset, you need to have an eBRAINS user account. If you already have an eBRAINS user account, you can request access directly by pressing on Request Access. If you do not have an eBRAINS account yet, then you can register for an account here. This link refers you to the registration page with the terms and conditions on there. To register, you have to scroll all the way down to the Register Today link and press there. On the registration page, you have to fill out your first name, last name, institutional email, username, and password, and then press register. If you already have an account, you can log in directly by pressing back to login. Here you fill in your username and your password. Once you've logged in, your access request has been sent, and you will receive an email to validate your identity and to remind you that the link cannot be shared with anyone else. It's important that you remember that when you press the link in the email, you agree with the eBRAINS data use agreement, and you can only access the data for 24 hours. You can request access as many times as you need, though. The email will look as follows. The email states which dataset you requested access to. And it also states that you agree to the data use agreement if you press this link. So let's press the link. By pressing on the link in the email, you have consented to the data use agreement, and you can now access the data. Please keep in mind that you can only access the data for 24 hours, and on this page it states exactly until which date and what time you can access the data. There's also a list of all the different files that you can download. So for example, we have the data descriptor, the license, and there's also a zip file of the full dataset. If you rather download a specific data file, you can scroll down in the list and find a particular data file that you're interested in and download it directly. If you do plan to download several files, we recommend that you consider using a download manager. You're now all set to find and use data that is currently available in the eBRAINS Knowledge Graph. For more tutorials on how to reuse the data using a particular software and analysis pipeline, check out the other tutorials available on the INCF training space. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us on the Curation Support email address, or if you want to share your own data. Please follow us on social media for updates and news and additional training videos, or check out our website for more information. Thank you.